It helps if I actually have myself live on the stream when we start and do things like turn on my lights. Talk about getting stuck just drinking my coffee. Give me a second, everybody. Wow. Okay, now we're on. And I can say good morning. Oh, yes, indeed. And it is a good morning. And I say good morning to all of you who are tuning in this morning to Coffee Breaks with Steve. It is Saturday morning. It is May 15th. We're almost halfway through this year. I mean, I know there's still a little bit of time left before we get truly to the 6-month point, but we're in the middle of May, and it just seems unbelievable to me. But once again, welcome. Hi, Jerry Thompson, Shalane Shepard, Jay Zetterval. Happy Saturday to all of you. Corey Ann Woodard, hello. And Shalane says, I'm drinking tea and taking names. Somebody's got to do it. You know what I'm saying? So welcome this morning. Welcome to the middle of May, as we say, right? And if you're tuning in live, it is May 15th. It is 9:30 in the morning, Pacific time. And if you are tuning in later, you're just as welcome. If you are tuning in, do what Rick just did and what Carla and Amy just did and say good morning or hello in the chat, as several other people have already done. Hi, Rick. Hi, Carla. Hi, Amy. And if you tune in later on, make sure that you also make your comments. I know not everybody's able to tune in live when we go on live stream on Saturday mornings, but I still love the fact that there are people who tell me later on that they went back and watched what we talk about here. This is a conversation, my friends. That's what this is all about. It's nothing formal. I'm not here to talk at you. I'm here to converse with you. So, hey, Jerry Zetterval, good morning to you. So, yeah, May 15th. Let's talk about some things that are going on. By the way, if I didn't already say it, if you are joining us, make sure Dustin is also watching. Thanks, Shalane. Hello, Dustin. And Carla says she always said, Carla, I've known you too long. You do not always do what you're told. But this is an interesting week in terms of things that are special days. Today, May 15th, is Armed Forces Day. Actually, it's not always May 15th. It's the third Saturday in May is Armed Forces Day. You know, we have Veterans Day, we have Memorial Day, and Armed Forces Day is a day that was set aside by Congress, I believe, and presidential proclamation some years back to recognize those who are current active duty in the military. So this is our day to acknowledge, to recognize, to thank people for their service who are actively serving. I suspect that most, if not all of us, know someone or someones who are actively in the military. Take some time, reach out to them today, not just today, every day. Thank them. Interestingly, in addition, today is Police Officers Memorial Day or Peace Officers Memorial Day, and it's a day to acknowledge those who are in law enforcement and have given their lives, lost their lives in the line of duty. So May 15th every year, it's not a third Saturday thing. That's actually May 15th is Police Officers Memorial Day. It is also, believe it or not, this is on an entirely different note, but May 15th is World Whiskey Day. World Whiskey Day. It's interesting. My wife, Carol, in this last couple of years has really gotten into a TV show called Outlander. Fictional show based on a series of books. She's also gotten into the books, but it takes place in the 1700s, and it starts in Scotland, and many of the main characters are Scottish. And from there's been a lot that she has followed that's about things about making and drinking whiskey. And we're not big drinkers to begin with, and certainly not big whiskey drinkers. But we've sampled some in the last year or so, and it's been kind of interesting to do that because Carol actually knows the Scottish salute, and it's a Schlante when you take the whiskey. But I even found, this being a coffee show, recently found some whiskey-infused coffee online. I don't know if you can read that with the reflection, but whiskey coffee from Edinburgh, Scotland. So we've got that. So today is World Whiskey Day. So if you are of a mind to do so, have a dram sometime today, or just infuse your coffee with whiskey. That seems to be acceptable too, at least here, because I've got some. The 18th is International Museum Day. It's actually that was begun in 1977 by the International Council of Museums, and it's a day and some of the museums are now starting to open back up. A lot has been closed in this last year, but we're starting to see some opening up of some of these public places, including museums. And a lot of the museums and other places like that count on attendance, count in many cases on donations and memberships, that type of thing, have suffered a lot in this last year just to maintain being there for a reopening. So this is a great opportunity this week, whether you are able to actually get out and visit a museum, start looking into which ones you can get to. I do think it's cool that over this last year, a lot of the museums, the Smithsonian's is a big example of this, but others have put a lot of stuff virtually online. You could take virtual tours of the museums. I'm looking forward to getting back out there and doing some personal tours. I've always enjoyed museums of various kinds. Growing up, one of my favorites, growing up, and some of you in the Pacific Northwest are familiar with this one or know of it, but when I was a very young child, we lived in a little town called Wishram, Washington, on the Columbia River, about 20 miles east of the Dalles on the opposite side of the river, if you're familiar with that part of Oregon and Washington. And a little bit further beyond Wishram on the Washington side is a historic home that was turned into museums, the Mary Hill Museum. It was originally a home built by Sam Hill for his wife, Mary, and he had never actually ended up living in there. I believe, if I remember the story correctly, Mary died before they ever moved into the home. Basically, this castle type of structure, and it was turned into a museum. It's got some great exhibits in it, including some Native American artifacts and art from the area, a lot of great art. There's a lot of original Rodin art at the Mary Hill Museum, but there are a lot of great museums around. So do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite museum? Feel free to put that in the chat. I'd love to hear where people love to go. We've been to several of the Smithsonian's in Washington, D.C. I love this. I love the Air and Space Museum, American History Museum, Natural History Museum. But there are a lot of cool cultural museums in the Smithsonian's. There are some that I've never even visited yet. I'm planning to go back and see as many of those as I can. All right, what else is going on this week? I kind of went down a museum rabbit hole there, but let's see. I'm just checking to see if there's anybody I haven't said hello to yet. If you signed in the last few minutes and I didn't yet say hello to you, put something in the chat here. I'll try to catch that and say hi. May 18th. What else rings a bell this day in history for any of you, particularly from the Pacific Northwest? But what else this next week? May 18th. Why is that date a familiar one to many of us from going back now 41 years, right? May 18th. Oh, hi, Kathy Garlick. Interrupted myself in the middle of that thought. Whew. Anytime I do that, you get these brain scatter things that go on when you're talking. They happen to me a lot, but it always is a sign to me that maybe another sip is ready. Yeah. May 18th, 1980, the major eruption of Mount St. Yeah, boom goes the mountain. That's right, Jay. Mount St. Helens in Washington had started to show signs of erupting 2 months prior to that. In March, there was some activity, and geologists, scientists were saying this mountain may be coming back alive again. And there was a lot of talk. And then we started to see some minor eruptions. You saw, I actually worked in an office building near the Lloyd Center, in one of the Lloyd buildings, where we had a view looking north. You could see on a clear day, you could see Mount St. Helens very clearly. And so there were several times during those first couple of months being at work, and all of a sudden you'd hear a commotion, people would move toward that side of the building. And we were watching some of those minor early eruptions as craters were opening the mountain, as the bulge was beginning to form. And then on Sunday morning, May 18th, an earthquake. Mountain was already bulging. There was a lot of magma and gas building up under the mountain, and there was an earthquake that actually released the bulge on the side. You've seen the video, the entire side of the mountain collapsed in that major eruption. There were multiple eruptions in the weeks and months following that we saw personally from Portland and from the area around there. I mean, it was something that we lived through, and it was a very interesting time. And Corey Ann has some cool, looks like sorted information. Wow, yeah, that's cool. She has some info about Mary Hill Museum that looks like it's got some maybe a little bit of the tabloid type of stuff in it, but that's interesting too. Thank you, Corianne. What else going on this week? We got to get on through the stuff going on and get to our topic today. The 21st, next Friday, is National Bike to Work Day. And I believe that's always the third Friday in May. I don't know that it's always the 21st. I think it's always that Friday. But that's actually, I don't know if you know, I know that there are people like Jay Zetterval. You're an avid bike rider. I know that. I don't know if you were a bike to work guy back in the day. But biking to work, I remember living in Portland, which is a big bike city. A lot of people like to ride their bikes. It was always a big deal on Bike to Work Day that you would see like city officials, the mayor and others would ride their bikes to work. And there was always a lot of big news around that. I didn't realize till I was looking into this a little bit that it goes all the way back to 1956. So 65 years ago. And it was founded and formed by the League of American Bicyclists as a way to encourage people to ride their bikes to work. You know, I remember it from the 70s, the 80s and beyond, when there was a lot more consciousness about about air pollution or not using up gas when we had gas shortages and stuff. It came a lot to the forefront, but it's been around a lot longer than that. Some birthdays this week. Also today specifically, dear friend Lois Haig, who watches this program from time to time. Lois is celebrating a birthday today. Happy birthday, Lois. I will reach out to you later on Facebook and wish you a happy birthday personally, but saying it here. The 18th, in addition to being that Mount St. Helens Remembrance Day, is also Brandon Garlick's birthday. Happy birthday, Brandon. I mentioned it last week because we kind of go from, in terms of special days and birthdays, Saturday to the following Friday. Yesterday was my grandson Remy's birthday, 11 years old yesterday. But Remy is here this weekend. We're actually going to be birthday partying, celebrating with him today with a variety of things. So I'm just going to once again say happy birthday to Remy, even though he's now 11 years plus 1 day. We're going to say happy birthday to him. So yeah, if you have a special day this week that I didn't mention and you want to make sure that we catch it, please put it in the chat here so that we can recognize you. And if you have a special day coming up in the month of May at some point and you want to just private message me to make sure that we do acknowledge it on the air, so to speak, when we're on Coffee Breaks with Steve. Once again, I'm just going to say as we start to get into our topic, if you haven't yet said hello, make sure that you do that and say hi when you join and make sure that we can recognize you. If you're joining us for the very first time this week, make sure you say hi so we see you and let us know how you found out about us. Maybe a friend told you about us. Maybe you just ran across it on Facebook. We do go out on Facebook Live, and there's a Coffee Breaks with Steve Facebook page. We also actually broadcast live to YouTube, and there is a page on YouTube where these episodes continue to live. So let us know how you found us. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to get ready to introduce our topic here today, and we're going to be welcoming back in a moment a friend who is with us on regular occasion. You have seen her on here, heard her on here before, and it's always, always, always a lot of fun when she joins us because we get a chance to hear about some new reading material and some cool books. And I'm going to go ahead and bring her on here, Ann Davis East. And Ann, it's good to have you. I know we were having a little bit of technical issue earlier. And so if Ann's picture or audio frees up, don't panic, anyone. We'll recover that. But hi, Ann.
Hello, Steve. Hi, everybody. Everybody, Saturday's going well.
Oh man, it's off to a good start, right? We're in mid-May. It's spring. We're getting close to summer. And you've been on here several times. Oh, by the way, before I forget to say this, I know it's not this week, so it wouldn't be part of the official notice, but you're not going to be with us next week when I bring this up. So you have a May birthday as well, right? Yours is coming up in another week or so, another kind of week and a half here, right? You're like May 23rd or something like that?
Yes, thank you.
So an early happy birthday. It's your birthday month, so we can say that since you're here.
Thank you very much.
So we've talked about a lot of different kind of books and reading, and back in the holiday season, we talked about some holiday books. The beginning of this year, we talked about some books about the Supreme Court. You always bring interesting reading ideas that sort of have a theme or a seasonal element to them. What did you want to talk about today?
Today are kind of some pre-reading, maybe going into beach reading, summer reading. I pulled some books that I've read pretty much almost 20 years ago. They were my summer reading. They actually were good reads because it was a summer on the East Coast that rained every single day for 14 days. So
Wow.
it was nice. I had a stack of books with me. And then a couple of just kind of fun books, and then two kind of interesting books that you might want to delve into. So I'm going to start off with my book, 3 books that I read 20 years ago. And the first one is called 1,000 White Women, The Diary of May Dodd. And that's by Jim Fergus. And 1,000 White Women is a historical fiction. It takes place in the 1860s and under Grant's administration. The historical section part of the book is that we as the United States had an agreement with the Indians on the West Coast, kind of West Denver, Colorado, kind of in the Rockies, that we would trade 1,000 white women for 1,000 horses. And that was to help assimilate Native Americans in with the white people.
Wow.
These women were not necessarily the cream of the crop. They were prostitutes. They were women from mental hospitals, all of that. Well, May Dodd is one of the main characters, and she was sent off. And I won't give you too much, but it's just an amazing story. And not only with the historical side to it, but just the fiction and what May Dodd went through. So that one is a really good. It's been on people's book clubs list. It's been on, all sorts of things. So that is one. The second one that I want to talk about is House of Sand and Fog. And that was also made into a movie in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And that's by Andre Dubus, Dubus III. And that has two kind of main stories. One is on a Iranian family that moved to the U.S. and how they assimilate into the U.S. It takes place in the Bay Area. And another one is a woman who is having some difficult times and really just trying to put her life together, and the two families merge. Again, it's a really good book. I would read it before I see the movie if you're one of those types.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, there's always Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil, which is by John Barnett, Barnett. And that actually was a New York Times It book in 1994. And that happens down in Savannah, Georgia, and it's a murder mystery. Mm-hmm. So those are kind of my ones from 20 years ago. Then for fun, there's always the Elon Hillenbrand books. She writes stories that take place on the island of Nantucket, Massachusetts. And those are just kind of fun little quick books to read. And the other one I really like is Diana Mott Davidson, who is their mysteries, and it centers around a caterer by the name of Goldie, and she helps her husband, who's a police officer, solve crimes and murders in Aspen Meadows outside of Aspen. And what's nice about that is at the back of the book are her recipes that she cooks for her catering jobs. So those are always kind of fun. And then lastly, my two kind of really thought-provoking books are by Arianna Huffington. And the first one is called Thrive, which is the third metric to redefining success in your life, well-being, wisdom, and wonder. And that's a really kind of a good thought-provoking, maybe when it takes some time during the summer to kind of reassess where you are, especially since we're beginning to open up a little bit and those. And then second one by her is called The Sleep Revolution, which is transforming your life one night at a time. And it's really working on how we can get better sleep. We all tend to have times where things are just going so much in our heads. So those are kind of my books for this and at the pre-summer reading.
Yeah.
You can, a couple of places I suggest to find is to go to the New York Times. It's called the New York Times It Books, and they go back pretty far on what the book was for that year.
Oh, that's interesting.
The other one is to search what the summer reading list are for some of the schools. If it's a private school, a public school, a university, some of them will have defined books that a student needs to read, and just do a search. And those are interesting. A quick little story. My mother, when we would go from the Midwest to the East Coast for the summer, would always put an empty Foot Locker in the car. We would stop in Cambridge, Massachusetts at the Harvard Book Club, the Harvard Bookstore. She would go up to the third floor, which is the textbook floor, and she would buy every book that the literature department from your freshman and senior year was reading. She would spend the entire summer reading those books, donate the books that she read to the public library, go back, refill it up with all the books that the fall literature classes, and those were her fall and winter books that she would read. And that was every year that I was growing up.
Okay, that in and of itself is a great study. It almost sounds like that would be a topic for you to come back and just talk about at some point, just to talk about ways that we can continue to circulate our own libraries and continue to fill with those opportunities. I like that story. And one more thing, you talk about sort of the pre-summer reading, and we are going to be getting close to summer, and we're coming into this different time. There was a period of time when you first started joining us on this show, and when you and I first started talking and you started sharing, it was almost about finding books to shelter with. It was almost like the books were a way to help us survive this idea. I mean, that wasn't the only reason, obviously. Books aren't just for that purpose, but now we are getting to this point. You mentioned it, where things are starting to open up a bit. And I think even with the story that you just told, books don't just have to be shelter in the house companion. Books are great to take on vacation. Books are great to have with you wherever you go, right? I mean, that's a great thing to arm yourself with, and to do that even with the kids. We're getting ready to take a little road trip next week with a couple of our grandkids and talking about not just taking the standard asked for electronic pads with us, but what are some books that we can take along they can be reading in the car, that they can be reading where we're at, and do something other, when they say I'm bored.
Yeah.
But adults, but we as grown-ups too, that's something that we should be making a part of our habit, not just for when we're stuck at home.
Yeah, I think that, trying to, if you have enough time, if you know kind of this where you're going to be traveling, I think calling the local librarian in the children's
Yeah.
department or just at all,
Wow.
and just ask what are the books that then the children are reading in your community. So you can kind of share, or what are some good books for children or an adult to learn about your region? Um,
Yeah.
those
Yes.
things are always really a good. But reaching out to the librarians is a great resource. That,
I think that's a great idea. And you were talking about reading things that are tied to the region. We, a few weeks ago, mentioned here on Coffee Breaks with Steve, but we said farewell to Beverly Cleary, a very prolific children's author who grew up in most of her life and wrote most of her books in and around the area of Portland where I grew up. And I remember as a child reading those, and actually many of her characters and stories took place not just in the region, but in the general neighborhood where I grew up in Northeast Portland. And so she would mention landmarks, she would mention places that her characters were playing in and going to, and there was such a level of familiarity. You literally would go, well, I've been there. And that can make a big difference for kids. We've talked about that as well with our kids and our grandkids now, about reading about something either before or after you get a chance to visit that place, and what a difference it makes when there's a personal experience. And you even some of the books you were talking about, the fiction, have references to real places, and what an opportunity if you are traveling someplace to include some reading that has a relationship to the place or the history that goes along with some of your travels. And we have done that.
I've done, gone back to books that I read, or my cousins, my sister, series that we read, and I've spent this summer rereading those with our children and just sharing our memories of reading them with so they kind of come alive a little bit more, I think. Yeah. And they're stories that are just stories. They don't deal with constant today's society issues. The boxcar children are just the boxcar children that live and have adventures. Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, all of those. And sometimes because we've spent this whole year and then just with everything going on, sometimes we just need to kind of step back and go back into our fantasies. When we were back, Tuck Everlasting is a great fantasy book by Natalie Babbitt, both for children and adults. So, there's just an enormous amount of things. One of the things I like to do is find out what were the children and adult books for 1955, which was the year I was born, and try to read those, find those that are not out of print. Right. And read those.
Interesting. Well, I'll just say this: Anne is going to send me the list of books, and she also referenced a couple of sources that you can go to find additional books, and we're going to get all of those posted on the Coffee Breaks with Steve page. We'll share that with everybody so that if you didn't get every title and author and resource copied down, we'll make sure that you have access to that. And Anne, I just want to thank you again. It is always so much fun when you come on here. I always walk away with new reading ideas, and I think everybody else does too. It's always insightful. It's always, to me, it's inspirational, because sometimes you're mentioning things. And by the way, I go back sometimes and reread some of those kids' books too. We talk about books for the kids. It's like the books that I grew up with, and to go back and reread some of those now as an adult, they don't lose the flavor. They just have a different perspective now. And sometimes that can be another way, at least for me, to get a respite from a lot of the stuff that's going on in our current events. If we need that break, is to get back to that, the basics, the simplicity of that. So, Anne, thank you so much for being here again. We look forward already to the next time. And I know you and I will be talking and sharing some information about that.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for having me, and everybody
Absolutely.
enjoy some pre-summer reading.
There you go. All right. Thanks, Anne. All right. Anne Davis East, always fun to have her here. Hey, we haven't done this in a few weeks, but we are going to do a prize drawing, name drawing today. And by the way, I saw Scott came on here. Hi, Scott Glavin. If I haven't said hi to you, I know some of you joined a little bit later, but if I haven't said hello to you, make sure that you put something in the chat here so we know you're here. But I want to tell you, we're going to do a prize drawing, and I'm going to tell you about some things that are coming up in the not too distant future here on Coffee Breaks with Steve, including, I want to share again, give me just a second because we're kind of running it all today. But I've been talking about the fact that we've got this 100th episode coming up. And I just want to make sure that that's not the screen I was looking for. We're going to try that again. This is what happens when you try to run everything from one computer. Sometimes things work and sometimes they don't work as well. All right, let's see if I can make this work this time. Give me just a second. Like I say, we try to see. I bet it's not going to work again. Yeah, it didn't work again. We'll get there. But let me just mention again that we've got that 100th episode coming up on June 12th. And I'm doing a very special contest opportunity between now and then. We are going to have a chance for one of you or someone else who watches this on a regular basis to join me as a co-host, a guest co-host on that day, on June 12th. And some of you I know kind of go, oh man, that seems a little bit weird and scary to, it just really doesn't want me to share that, so I'm not going to do it. It's an opportunity to be part of the conversation. And look, I know all of you. There's not a single one of you who isn't capable of doing this. And you're thinking, well, it's kind of weird. I'll have to get up early. I have to get dressed and put on makeup. I don't put on makeup. And I mean, yes, I throw a shirt on. You know, this one happens to have coffee written all over it, as several of mine do. That's just me. But if you remember a few weeks ago, Shalane joined me as a guest co-host, and she said she deliberately dressed the way she typically would to get up in the morning and watch Coffee Breaks with Steve. She had her robe on, her hair was just pulled back and up, and she just came on very relaxed. That's what this is about. If we were getting together and just having a cup of coffee around the table, what would that look like? And we'll have a chance, if your name is drawn, you'll have a chance to chat with me ahead of time. We'll talk about what that day is going to look like. Got a few entries already, but I know some of you who are tuned in today and some of you who are going to watch later are quite capable of joining as a guest co-host. Some of you say, well, I've just been on as a guest before. I've already had the opportunity to be on the air. That's okay. It's going to be a different conversation. This will be an opportunity for us to be part of encouraging other people to chat. And we'll talk about what the topics are going to look like, that type of thing. So if you haven't entered already, you can go to the Coffee Breaks with Steve site and get the information. In fact, I'm going to put again, give me a moment. I'm putting the email address in the chat right now. And what I would ask you to do is, if you want to enter, and I encourage you to do so, go to that email address, CBW Steve, Coffee Breaks with Steve, CBW Steve at Comcast.net. Just put 100th episode in the subject line. Make sure your name, your email address, and phone number are in the body of the email. And don't hold off. We're going to do the drawing on the deadline is May 25th, and that's just a couple of weeks off. So don't wait till the last second to do this, if you would, please. I just kind of want to get a sense for who's interested in doing this. And let's face it, this would be fun for any one of you. I'll make it fun. It's not going to be hard. It's not going to put you on the spot, not going to embarrass you in any way. I'll embarrass myself. I do that every week. But please take the time to do that. I think you'll enjoy it. And tell you some things that are coming up next week on Coffee Breaks with Steve. We have an episode called Make Your Own Kind of Music with Derek Nelson. Derek Nelson is an artist, musical artist, and he is also, he toured for several years with his siblings, with Dalton and Rihanna, with Derek Nelson and Family was the name of the group. You would also recognize Derek. He has done vocals for a number of TV shows. His music has been featured. But if you were a fan of the TV show Glee that was on for several years, Derek was the guitar player in the background there, who was always the guitar player in Glee. That's Derek. Derek's going to be on next week. And what we're going to focus on, a couple of things. One is, is it ever too late to pursue your dreams? Make your own kind of music. Sometimes that's about music and sometimes about other things in your life. And it may be that you're just starting to pursue something, maybe something you've put on the shelf for a while and you think, I'd love to get back to that, but can I? Maybe it's something you've thought about. It's been on your bucket list to do all your life. Derek has a variety of things he's going to share next week about workshops that he has put together and some new things that he's going to be introducing to talk about how people in all stages of life, in all phases of talent, can learn how to write, arrange, and present their own music. And we're going to take that topic and talk about how that can apply to so many things in life. The week after that, May 29th, we're going to be actually on location in Spokane, Washington. We're going to be doing a fun episode you'll hear more about that is called Coffee Breaks with Steve, the movie. If we were doing a movie called Coffee Breaks with Steve, who would play you as part of the conversation? And the movie will sort of set the plot line, what's happening. And you tell me what famous actor, don't do it now, wait a couple of weeks. What famous actor will also on that day announce who's going to be co-hosting with me on the June 12th 100th anniversary episode. And then the week in between that May 29th and the June 12th, June 5th, actually happens to be my birthday. So we're going to do a birthday party scene where everybody who wants to can actually be on camera. We'll have a live conversation, not just in the chat. We're all going to hang out and actually have a conversation. We'll talk more about that as well. That's a lot. I also want to tell you that we are doing a drawing today, and the winner of today's drawing happens to be Kathy Garlick. So Kathy, I'll be in touch with you, but you actually get to select one of the books that Ann talked about today, and that book, you will get a copy of that book sent to you. So congratulations, Kathy. And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. Thank you if you tune in later and watch this as well. You still get to benefit from seeing what all his books are. We've gone long today. Sometimes happens when we have special guests on, and when Ann comes on here, I never want to cut short that list, but I want to make sure we also shared the rest of this information. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all you do. Things are starting to little by little open up in various parts of the country again, and we have the opportunity to get out there. So no matter how you do it, I've said it before, I will say it again. When you get out there, or even if you're staying at home and you're just connecting virtually, find a way to make a difference in your world this week. We can all do that. You all have something to share. You all have something to give, and there are people who can benefit from who you are and what you have to share. So God bless you. Take care. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.